On March 20, 2026, Novo Nordisk's Indian patent for the glucagon-like peptide 1, or GLP-1, receptor agonist semaglutide expires. India currently houses an estimated 101 million individuals living with type 2 diabetes. Epidemiological projections indicate that by 2030, 404 million Indian adults will fall into the high body mass index category. This chart shows the projected inverse relationship between drug cost and patient volume. As generic entry forces a 90% drop in monthly treatment costs, from over 12,000 rupees down to 1,290 rupees, the drug crosses a critical affordability threshold for the middle class. This initiates a 5x expansion of the total addressable market, scaling from 1,400 to over 5,000 crore. To capture this volume, more than 40 manufacturers will launch over 50 generic formulations. This rapid influx of supply removes semaglutide from the category of luxury biologic and turns it into a highly accessible mass-market commodity. The economic structure of Indian metabolic healthcare shifts as a direct result. The standard assumption for capital allocation during a patent cliff is to buy equities in the generic drug manufacturers formulating the new molecule. That strategy ignores the mathematics of supply. When 40 companies can synthesize the exact same active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API, the raw chemical rapidly commoditizes. Those 40 manufacturers must engage in a brutal war of attrition, spending heavily on marketing and field forces to secure shelf space against identical competitors. This naturally compresses the gross margins for the formulators. The locus of profit generation migrates away from the raw molecule. The capital flows instead toward the physical mechanisms of delivery and the underlying supply chain. Securing a return on this event requires analyzing exactly how the chemical is transported, packaged, and injected into the patient. For the companies actually making the drug, market share will be captured entirely through delivery format asymmetry. Natco Pharma and Eris Lifesciences stripped the complex delivery system down to a basic multi-dose glass vial. This bypasses the constrained global supply chains for plastic auto-injector pens entirely. Stripping out the manufacturing cost of the complex pen device allows Natco to price its starting dose at 1,290 rupees per month. This immediately secures the highly price-sensitive, volume-driven demographic. Eris Lifesciences took the opposite approach. They indigenously engineered an adjustable, reusable single pen device. GLP-1 therapies require a strict dose titration phase, gradually increasing the strength over weeks to manage gastrointestinal side effects. A reusable pen allowing multiple dose selections from a single unit reduces the longitudinal cost of therapy and improves patient compliance. Eris then constructed a distribution syndicate with Lupin and Torrent Pharmaceuticals. By deploying 3 distinct corporate sales forces to market the exact same underlying physical asset under different brand names, they blanket doctor clinics and monopolize physician attention. The retail battle is split. Formulators must choose between raw, low-cost volume capture with vials or securing premium, long-term clinical value through device convenience. Mankind Pharma opted to entirely bypass the zero-sum battle for the attention of the Crown and Dietologist Network. They constructed a dedicated obesity division that explicitly targets secondary demographic pools ignored by traditional competitors. High body mass index is physiologically linked to severe comorbidities. These include polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, in women's health, as well as major adverse cardiovascular events, or MACE, like stroke and myocardial infarction. To access these specific patients, Mankind acquired Bharat serums and vaccines for 13,630 crore rupees. This provided them with the highly specialized, technically trained field force required to directly market semaglutide to gynecologists and cardiologists. By expanding the medical definition of who actually prescribes the drug, Mankind secures a specialized prescription pipeline isolated from the primary pricing wars. Despite these intelligent marketing strategies, the sheer volume of identical chemical supply guarantees that retail pricing will plunge across the board. This flowchart illustrates margin compression. A single patient rupee fractures into thin slices as 50 brands increase marketing to survive. The value flows instead to toll booth operators, the precision infrastructure components required to deliver the peptide. They collect high-margin revenue on every unit. Their EBITDA is projected to expand beyond 30%, insulated from retail pricing wars. As the active ingredient commoditizes, the most reliable profits in this market will accrue strictly to the entities selling the picks and shovels. The first major infrastructure constraint is the device. Producing medical-grade plastic auto-injectors requires intricate manufacturing tooling and rigorous global regulatory qualification. Shaily Engineering Plastics holds a near-monopoly position in this specific domestic market. They are currently executing a massive global capacity expansion to produce over 150 million pen units annually. The second, and perhaps most severe global bottleneck, is sterile fill-finish operations for drug-device combinations. Formulating the fragile peptide into a sterile liquid and filling it into highly precise glass cartridges requires world-class, heavily regulated cleanroom capacity. This requires a specialized contract development and manufacturing organization, or CDMO. OneSource Specialty Pharma controls this constraint, possessing rare, fully integrated microbial and mammalian drug product facilities. OneSource is scaling its installed capacity from 40 million to 220 million pens. This overwhelming demand grants them massive pricing power, allowing management to target a 40% EBITDA margin. Shaily and OneSource capture immense value entirely through volumetric throughput. Their revenue is mathematically insulated from which specific pharmaceutical brand ultimately wins the patient prescription. The final systemic hurdle is physical distribution. The Indian pharmaceutical distribution market relies heavily on over 65,000 small, unorganized regional distributors. Moving millions of new semaglutide units through this network is a major operational challenge because the peptide requires strict cold chain logistics. It must be maintained between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius to preserve molecular integrity until its first use. Entero Healthcare Solutions bypasses this fragmentation. They operate as a tech-enabled pan-national platform using a centralized network of 102 warehouses to capture the massive logistical throughput. Specialized distribution operates on inherently thin gross margins, often below 4%. However, the business model relies on exponential asset turnover, which creates massive operating leverage as the volume of high-value specialty drugs increases. A rigorous capital allocation strategy for the semaglutide patent expiry requires ruthlessly differentiating between the combatants fighting over a chemical and the entities facilitating the ecosystem. In this generational healthcare expansion, the highest risk-adjusted returns belong exclusively to the specialized monopolies, the companies that manufacture the vial, engineer the precision pen, sterile fill the cartridge, and secure the cold chain transport.